nightmare. I was just randomly pushing buttons. Hey, I was trying to get the little countdown to go for our conversation here. Doug Pagitt in Minneapolis, Robb Ryerse is out of Fayetteville, Arkansas. Donald Trump in New Jersey.
Happy third indictment day, Doug.
Dude, it's I mean, this happened on the other two indictment days too, and you'd think I'd be used to it now. It's the solemnity that strikes me. I mean, look, I think you know my view. I think Donald Trump is a hazard to the well-being of this planet and everyone who lives on it. He has no business being the president of the United States. So while he is a beloved child of God, not every light of the world should be the president.
The world. Should take his dim little light to Mar-a-Lago and leave the good people of this United States alone.
Yeah, stop bothering the good people. And I think that what he has done needs a criminal response, and it will be up to a court to decide if the evidence proves his guilt or not. That legally he's presumed innocent, with a little caveat, because even though you're presumed innocent, you're also placed under arrest, which is interesting because on Thursday, Donald Trump, for the third time in the last number of months, will be told by a member of law enforcement, you are under arrest and you are not free to do what you want to do. You are under the authority of this court.
You have you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law.
The Miranda rights, which Trump has regularly said that people shouldn't have the right to have. Another sort of bit of irony. All right, did you have a chance to read the indictment? Did you?
I have not. I've skimmed just a little bit. I will read the whole thing. I have had a busy afternoon, and I haven't had a chance to get my eyes into all of it yet. But give me the highlights from your perspective.
So as I read all of it, I'll tell you, Rob, it's tedious, and to anyone who's still interested in reading it, I hope that you will, of course, because it's a doozy, 45 pages long.
Ironically.
All right, for the non educated among us, that's because Donald Trump was the 45th president of the United States and wants to be also the 47th president of the United States. So,
hey, there was the timer. Yeah, you found the button.
I just know. The timer running. Is the timer running right down? I got a bunch of things open. I'm trying to pull open the all of the indictments.
Yeah, so I've got the indictment open in front of me. There's essentially three things that Donald Trump has been, three criminal conspiracies. This is from the indictment: a conspiracy to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful federal government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government. A conspiracy to corruptly obstruct and impede the January 6th congressional proceedings at which the collected results of the presidential election are counted and certified. And a conspiracy against the right to vote and to have one's vote counted.
Yeah.
Three conspiracy charges.
Yeah, kind of a strange one. And one of those, or each of those four, they lay out with some text that is really, that part is not all that compelling to people, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's like when you read that, it doesn't feel overly dramatic. But these other statements that lay them out, and number one says, the allegations contained in paragraph 1 through 4 of this indictment are alleged and fully incorporated here by these references. The conspiracy from on or about November 14th, 2020 through on or about January 20th, 2021 in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators, known and unknown to the grand jury, to defraud the United States by using dishonesty, fraud, and deceit to impair, obstruct, and defeat the lawful government function by which the results of the presidential election are collected, counted, and certified by the federal government. I mean, that line, to defraud the United States using dishonesty, is just
Yeah.
unbelievable.
The crux of the fraud, the reason why it's fraud is because Donald Trump knew he lost. It wasn't an election night thing where you say, "Hey, they're still counting votes, but we believe we're going to win this thing. We
Right.
won this thing." Where you don't know. Every politician does that. And
Yeah.
the indictment says near the beginning, listen, you're allowed to have political speech. You're even allowed
Yeah.
to lie in your political speech.
That's right. Yeah.
But which is an amazing thing for an indictment to say. But the fraud comes about because Donald Trump knew that he lost. He knew that the election interference that he has talked about, that he has claimed, did not happen. He knows that.
Yes.
And yet has perpetrated these lies to stay in power and to defraud the United States of its authority to have the peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah. Count 2 in the indictment says the allegation contained in paragraphs 1 through 4 and 8 through 123 of this indictment are realleged and fully incorporated here by reference. From on or about November 14th, 2020 through on or about January 7th, 2021. So they have different dates, different charges on different dates. This one is called the conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. So this is the one that only goes through January 6th. The other one went through January 20th. This is what's going to become important for people who care about this. Now, again, a lot of people don't care. They either believe Trump is just guilty or they believe that he's not and whatever. But people who do, it's more than just a passing interest. So from on or about November 14th through on or about January 7th in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald J. Trump, and the way it's laid out in the indictment is quite stunning because it has those sentences written in normal fashion with lots of room around them, lots of space. It's like the way I would write a 5-page term paper in 6th grade,
Yep. Oh, we're double spacing. We're quadruple spacing this.
But then it puts Donald J. Trump in the middle of the paragraph, centered, or in the middle of the page, centered all by itself on a line.
Bolded.
So, and elsewhere, the defendant, bolded, shouting, Donald J. Trump did knowingly combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with co-conspirators known and unknown to the grand jury to corruptly obstruct and impede an official proceeding. That is the certification of the electoral vote in violation with Title 18 of the United States Code section in violation of this other code. So it's got a separate action from the first one.
Doug, as it turns out, you can't just storm the Capitol building or incite a crowd to storm the Capitol building to keep elected officials from doing their duty as, prescribed by the Constitution. You just can't. You just can't.
So on that one, it was conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. So we got some people together. They're named as person number 1, person number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They're not named in the indictment here with their legal names. They're just referenced, and then there's quotes from those people. So you know that person number 1 is Rudy Giuliani because later in the indictment, it has very specific details, and it'll say things like, and then person number 1, conspiracist or number 1, said to the group at the ellipse, you have to have trial by fire. Like the thing Rudy Giuliani said. It's clearly Rudy Giuliani. So this level of specificity of each of these charges is so detailed. It's incredible. But then here's count 3. Okay, so this could be a little confusing to someone. Again, count 2 was entitled conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Okay, count 3 is obstruction of, an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And this one reads like this. The allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 4 and 8 through 123 of this indictment, realleged and fully incorporated by the reference, from on or about November 14th through January 7th again, in the District of Columbia, the defendant, Donald J. Trump in bold, attempted to and did corruptly obstruct and impede an official proceeding, that is the certification of the electoral vote. So it's just good to recognize that the second charge was that there was a combined, they knowingly combined, conspired, and confederated with agreed conspirators to try to do so.
Yes.
That's one charge. The second charge is they actually did it.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
it's
so
not, and the
essentially,
reason
you
this is
can't-
important is you can't say this was just a process crime. In other words, they were plotting something. What the government is arguing is Donald Trump, in his role as a citizen and a president, did corruptly obstruct and impede an official proceeding of the federal government. Incredible.
Yeah, and the conspiracy charge has to do with, you know, getting a group of people getting together to plan this, and so it's
Yes.
where you get, and we'll talk about who the co-conspirators are. And by the way, this is a little pet peeve of mine: co-conspirators. Conspirators already has the co in it. You don't need a co-conspirator. If you're a conspirator, you're a co-conspirator. It's redundant.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
It is unnecessarily redundant. So, and repeated like over and over.
And saying the same thing over and over again.
So we'll talk about who the conspirators are, but that's the conspiracy charge. Now, what's interesting is that Donald Trump, what they're saying is that he did obstruct.
Yes.
You know, the proceedings in January 6th.
They
were obstructed. They were halted, and you know, the whole, and they are putting the blame for the people going into the Capitol building squarely on the shoulders of Donald Trump, because that was the obstruction. The obstruction took place when the mob of MAGA folks took the Capitol building. And they are saying that was the obstruction. They're saying Donald Trump is responsible for that.
Yes, and then they detail it in the indictment. It's what I guess news people call a speaking indictment, meaning it tells a story. Like it's not just these charges; it tells details, and it lists dates, and it lists times and tweets that were sent out and when. You know what it feels like, Rob? It feels like all the things that we saw when we watched together in this same channel in these same places. The January 6th Select Committee reports.
Oh, yeah.
It reads like that. It's 45 pages long. Now, a bunch of it breaks out each of 7 states where 45 pages long. Thank you. Where it goes to each of
that again.
Thank you. It goes to each of 7 states and then describes how these activities, these corrupting activities, took place in each of the states. So for somebody who
in Arizona, in Michigan, this is not one
in Wisconsin, in Georgia,
was a concerted effort all across the country to do whatever they could to keep Donald Trump in power.
With the co-conspirators behaving in ways that they say they knew were false, they knew were deceptive, and they were using illegal practices. And then it says they used this corrupting desire that in these indictments to get other people in the positions of power in the governments of those states to act in particular ways. And then they charge that they used the Justice Department to do the same. So there's now going to be indictment charges.
Wait, hold on a second, Doug. Did you just suggest that they weaponized the Justice Department?
They are charged by the Justice Department with having weaponized the Justice Department. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, the irony is missed on only a few. All right, here's count 4, and this one is a doozy.
This is it is this cuts to the very heart of who we are as Americans.
The allegations contained in paragraphs 1 through 4, 8 through 123 of the indictment re-allege and further incorporate here by reference all the things that came in the 42 pages before this from on or about November 14th through on or about January 20th. Now, part of the reason they keep naming November 14th is that's when it was declared by people around Donald Trump that he had lost the election. That's why November 14th matters. And then January 20th is the day before is the day that he leaves office, right? So that for the entirety of that period of time as the president of the United States in the District of Columbia and elsewhere, the defendant, Donald J. Trump in bold, did knowingly combine, conspire, and confederate and agree with co-conspirators, known and unknown to the grand jury, to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate one or more persons in the free exercise and enjoyment of a right and privilege secured by the Constitution and laws of the United States. That is the right to vote and have one's vote counted. That charge says that Donald Trump did on or about, on dates through a 3-month period of time, did seek and did accomplish to take away the rights of people given to them in the Constitution and the laws.
Yeah, and the fundamental thing that we have as Americans is our right to self-governance, our right to vote and have that vote counted. It is something that, we as a couple of, white guy landowners, Doug, would have had from the very beginning. And it has been a right that has been fought for by women, by African Americans, and it is a right that felons now fighting for their right to vote. It is it has been a right that Americans have cherished and treasured.
Yep.
And Donald Trump just didn't care. If
Yeah.
you didn't vote for him, he didn't want your vote to count.
Yep.
And he took actions to keep the rightful votes of people, the 84 million Americans who voted for Joe Biden, you and I included among them, the 84 million Americans, the record number of Americans voting for a president of the United States, for Joe Biden. Donald Trump, because he lost, because he got fewer votes than that, thinks, well, those just shouldn't count. And he took actions, he took steps to keep them
Yep.
from counting.
I was in a gas station truck stop somewhere between Minneapolis and Charlotte, North Carolina 2 weeks ago, because I was driving either to North Carolina or back. And when people travel, they wear all kinds of things, right? You pick
clothes?
you pick your travel clothes. Well, there was a dad in the bathroom with a couple of young boys. He had one holding his hand, one that he had in his arm. And on the back of his T-shirt, as he turned around to walk out, and I was walking right behind him, was a picture of Bigfoot, which I'm sure he would refer to as Sasquatch based on what else was written on the shirt. And it says, "Oh, you won't believe in him," referencing Sasquatch, "but you do believe Joe Biden got 84 million votes?" I found it rather clever, and I smiled, said, "Hey, I get your shirt." But that's their point for a lot of people. The thing that you said, they're trying to deprive people of 84 million votes. I'm going to read a couple of quotes from my texting buddy. I asked his permission to share this because I thought it would be helpful for people to hear about this, because he's a super Trumper and Trump supporter. And he's like, yeah, that's the problem. This whole there's no way Joe Biden got 84 million votes from his basement. Like, that's the thing we think should be protected, was that 84 million people would have had their choice overturned. They're like, no, they wouldn't, because there weren't 84 million people who voted for him. That's the whole problem in the first place. Like, this is where it's going to go. There's going to be a large percentage of people who aren't going to read the indictment. And if they do, they're just going to say, well, Donald Trump believed that he actually won the election and he was just trying to make things right. Donald Trump doesn't believe that. Donald Trump does not believe he won the election. Right. They prove it. They make arguments in the indictment that I think proves it to me. A court will have to decide, and jurors will have to decide in that context if they choose to believe it. But I read it, and if I were a juror, I would buy it. Can I tell you what my buddy said in the exchange that we had?
Absolutely, yeah. I
send him the full indictment in PDF form, and then screenshot of the indictments, just the ones that I read here. And he said, "Oh, was it filed in Washington, D.C.? So will the case be there?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so. That's what it looks like, and that's where the judge is assigned." Then he writes,
"Yep,
the fix is in then, right? The fix is in. It's in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump can't get a fair deal in Washington, D.C.
The crime took place in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, but you can't have a fair trial there because people hate him there. So there it is, right? Right out of the chutes, the fix is in, and I said, come on. This whole thing that no one can be trusted, everyone's out to get him, he has no chance, he did nothing wrong, this is all faked. You know in your heart of hearts that isn't true. He writes, you know in your heart of hearts that it is true. You know that you know in your heart that Joe Biden is a real criminal, right? So truly, and this guy is a friend of mine. I like him a lot. I'm going to have him. We're going to do some podcasts together about this because I was just like, all right, people need to hear you, man, because this is what they have to get to. And then he writes this: Trump indictments are becoming a weekly thing now. Trump indicted, in quotes, yawn. Doesn't care. Now, whether that's deeply
fatigue
true
is setting in.
Yeah, because there's been 3 of them now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can hardly handle another indictment. What am I going to do with all the indictments?
Well, what are you going to do tomorrow when the indictment, when we wrap, wind this thing back up because indictments are coming in Georgia?
Yeah, because there's going to be yet another one. So, Rob, I thought it was worth us popping on so we can pop off a little bit.
Can we talk a minute about who we think the co-conspirators are?
Yeah, great point.
So here's an article from CNN. Co-conspirator number 1 is Rudy Giuliani.
No doubt, because he's the one that's quoted multiple times.
Yeah. Co-conspirator number 2 is John Eastman. John Eastman, you might remember from the really great show, the January 6th commission, that was just really great. John Eastman played a part in that. And so he circulated a 2-page memorandum with a plan for Vice President Mike Pence to overturn. Basically, he's like, Pence can. Pence
he wrote it up.
Shockingly, really, only the Vice President of the United States picks the next president. I don't know if you knew that. Co-conspirator number 3, release the Kraken, Sidney Powell Lowell.
Sidney Powell.
Yep. Who has been a really strange figure through all of this.
Yes.
It looks like co-conspirator number 4 is Jeffrey Clark, who, if I remember correctly, wasn't Jeffrey Clark the environmental lawyer that Trump tried to make attorney general?
Right. He was the Justice Department official whose work had been done in environmental law and thought, because at that point, Bill Barr had resigned and Trump is like, I just need to get somebody. And Jeffrey Clark is like, look, I think we can, it's like, I should make you the attorney general. And that caused that near on full resignation of people in the Justice Department.
Yes. Yeah. And then co-conspirator 5 is pro-Trump lawyer Kenneth Cheesebro. I'm not familiar with Kenneth Cheesebro.
Yeah, Cheesebro. Great name.
Yep. And then the identity of co-conspirator 6 is unclear. Doug? Co-conspirator 6 is referred to as a political consultant.
Well, I've heard people say Stephen Miller, and I hope it's Stephen Miller.
No.
Oh.
Here's who it could be.
Okay.
Ginny Thomas.
Oh, okay. All right. For those who are just tuning into this one and don't know Rob's inside track on Ginny Thomas, who is the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and is a political operative in her own right, and was texting Mark Meadows, who was the chief of staff of Trump, saying we have to do everything we can to stop the evil Bidens from taking over the White House. That's the person you're referring to.
Yes. Texting Mark Meadows saying that even at this moment, the Bidens are being arrested and yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
We don't know who co-conspirator 6 is. Political consultant who helped implement a plan to submit fraudulent slates of presidential electors. Oh. Now that could that be Senator Ron Johnson?
I don't know.
We know tried to hand a slate from the January 6th commission, brought to mind and taught us that Senator Ron Johnson tried to hand Mike Pence a false slate of electors.
Yeah, people tried to hand it to him. In fact, in the indictment, they detail that happening. They write that up and tell it. Maybe even from Mike Pence's point of view, whether taken from testimony or from books. Okay, so here's the thing that a lot of people are speculating on. Why are none of these people actually charged with a crime? The only one charged is Donald Trump. These are co-conspirators, which could mean that there's going to be charges brought later against them. They're still trying to work out details on them, perhaps. Or
They flipped.
they pled guilty already, or are giving more evidence in the hope that they will be able to not be charged or have some good will given by prosecutors to a judge at the sentencing when they do plead guilty to this. Donald Trump will, in my estimation, plead guilty to these charges. That's how this is going to go down. He will as well plead guilty. He's not going to want to sit before a jury trial with this judge in Washington, D.C., where the fix is in. He's not going to want to do that. And if that means he can make a deal that keeps him out of prison, he'll take that deal. If he goes through a trial, because look, we have a justice system that chooses to say, if you want to plead guilty, we will give you less of a sentence than if we find you guilty, which we should not be doing in this country. People should have the presumption of innocence, and you shouldn't be able to incentivize people to plead guilty because they would receive less of a punishment. But you find reasons to incentivize people. They're going to find a way to incentivize Donald Trump on this. I know people are going to all talk about it. No voters are going to want to leave him. All the rest, yes, all that stuff is true. And he is not going to want a judge staring down from a bench and saying, by a jury of your peers, you have been found guilty, and now I am going to apply minimum federal prison standards to you.
Yeah.
It is unthinkable. And to people who are going to say things like, oh, he's too narcissistic to ever plead guilty. I don't think you understand narcissists. Narcissists' number one job in their life is to protect themselves. That's like, he needs his boxes. What if he's in a place without his pants boxes?
He won't even be able to like go through them.
It's unthinkable, dude. It's really, and look, we are in a situation where a former president of the United States has been charged of these crimes that we all know. He's being charged with crimes for actions that we all know happened because he did them out loud.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is not an impeachment hearing. This is crimes charged by the federal government.
Yes. In an impeachment hearing, and Trump claims, that this is double jeopardy and he can't be charged with this because he already
Did he say that?
Did
he say this?
Yeah, he posted that on True Social, I think last week. An impeachment hearing, decisions are made with a political calculation.
Yeah.
An impeachment hearing is a political maneuvering
there should be none of that.
The federal government, not a legal one.
That's right.
Now, it certainly would have political consequences, and someone could be removed from office. But all of that happens within the realm of politics, and people can make their decisions on whether or not someone is guilty based on politics. Presumably, a jury and a judge in Washington, D.C., a jury and a judge in Florida, a jury and a judge in New York, and a jury and a judge in Georgia are going to make decisions.
Just hearing you say it is just truly unbelievable,
isn't it? Possibly even New Jersey. I still have my fingers crossed that we'll get additional charges in New Jersey. They will make decisions based not on politics, hopefully, but based on the on.
I don't want any more
on the rule of law.
Well, I'm with you, man. Look, this is such a sad, solemn day. These charges are overwhelming. When I got done reading that indictment, I just stood up and walked out through my house and said to my wife, it is just stunning. It is overwhelming and kind of tedious, right? If you're not following all of this, you're having to read these quotes and you're reading these specific incidents. So they're putting moments and actions with real people into place here. Those people that you just read off, who are the co-conspirators, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Sidney Powell, Jeffrey Clark, and Kenneth Chesebro, those people, they're going to flip. They are,
Yeah.
and
If they haven't already.
and they're going to be saying, "Hey, here's what went on. Here's what he knew," and it's not going to take long
Yeah.
before Donald Trump is talking about Rudy Giuliani and John Eastman and Sidney Powell and Jeffrey Clark and Kenneth Cheeseborough in ways that he talks about all the other people that he used to hire and work for.
Mike Pence and Bill Barr and Chris Christie and all of these people that worked for him, because he only hires the best.
Yeah. So he hires the best and then has to tell us that they're fools and full of nonsense. Yeah. Okay. So they're going to flip or have already, because I'll tell you who's not going to jail. Rudy Giuliani. That guy, no chance. Sidney Powell, she is not she's given up so much for this already. You think she's going to give up her freedom?
Yeah.
And look, they wouldn't be bringing these. Now, I know because
the pillow guy,
in the documents,
the pillow guy be
it could be Mike Lindell is his name. Yeah, he's a Minnesotan. Yeah, good Minnesota, good company made good.
I'm not sure if I want it to be Ginny Thomas or if I want it to be Mike Lindell.
I want it to be Stephen Miller so much. I want it to be Stephen Miller so much, because if he has to plead, because Stephen Miller has done all kinds of things that I think that people should be looking at on that guy. It's not because I'm being spiteful. All right. Well, I think that should be it for tonight. We'll obviously get a lot more tomorrow.
We'll talk tomorrow when Georgia drops.
You think it could be as soon as tomorrow?
I think it could be as soon as tomorrow. Jeez. Unbelievable.
You don't think they're going to give a little space, let this one breathe a little bit?
Let this one breathe, don't
start pouring the wine.
On the toes of the DC indictment. Just give it a little time.
Well, it'll be interesting if we see. I think the thing to start watching for is in the next 2 weeks, are some of these people, is there a superseding indictment like there is in the Mar-a-Lago files cases, where they kept pressuring someone who finally lied to them again, and they're like, now we're just charging you too. Like, you had your chance, and now you lied to us again, which is likely what happened there. So if that's going on here, but I don't think in this case, they've been at this for so long, I don't think they are unsure about the position they have from these people. I bet they haven't, because they've all been before the grand jury. All of these people.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, have been called before the grand jury. So, yeah, there's look, no matter who you are, you know that old Reagan thing, back when you were a Reaganite and people are so proud of, and they still say it, the 3 most dangerous words, or whatever, 5 most dangerous words. What are they?
I'm from the federal government,
and I'm here to help.
I'm here to help. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what the most scary words are? I'm from the federal government, and you're under arrest.
Yeah.
That's not a great campaign slogan. Like, I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help. That's a terrifying notion. Yes. And when these people who all know enough to know what the federal government can bring to bear on criminals, violate federal law, they're nervous. And these are not, this is not a personal assistant and a groundskeeper who are just like, I don't know, he said he was going to pay for my kids' college if I stayed quiet. None of these people are willing to go through the end of life as federal criminals for this. So I don't know. I just think that's what makes this unbelievable. And if Georgia has the same thing on these folks, if they're facing multiple, because the very crimes that Trump is charged with in this is what they're going to charge in Georgia, just at the state level. It's like a state version of these same charges, which Trump, even if he were ever elected president again, it just sounds terrible to say it, can't pardon himself from a state charge.
Yep. And I'd like to maybe just close by saying this, Doug, that, I know that there are, you began by talking about the solemnity of these charges, and they are serious. I'd like to think of indictment days as a little bit like Christmas. That you pause and you have the silent night, you have the meaning, the reason for the season, you have you have that reflection on, this is a commemoration of the birth of Jesus and all that is meant to us, and that's a serious thing, and yet at the same time, come on, ring those bells. Like
You
there's
are
something to there could be something to celebrate here. There could be something a little holly jolly. There's a little something in the air that might just make some of us while we fully recognize the solemnity of it, we our silent night might turn into joy to the world.
you are unbelievable. I don't want that to be true. I don't want us to celebrate this. I want us to get over it, get beyond
Yeah,
it, put it behind us, do the next best thing. You know, it's like somebody that goes
yes,
through AA and like
which
you
is yeah,
just do the next best, the next right thing.
yes, the
Like,
next
okay,
right thing.
let's just as a country do
Yeah,
the right thing here.
yeah, yep.
And it's awfully tempting in my smugness to want to say lock him up, but I just don't think that a
Yeah.
president should be put in prison. I just think it's the wrong. It shouldn't happen. I
Yeah.
don't want it to happen. All right. Okay. Hey, thanks
Okay.
y'all for paying any attention to us as you pay attention to all this important stuff, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.